Thank you for coming out for our first of 3 community town halls. We're here at Varina High School for those who are watching online. Um, our first conversation, 3 different locations, the same conversation topics. And so, because the district is so large, we try to make it as convenient as possible. So we have our evening meeting here this evening. And then I think Thursday I think Thursday is our day meeting. Is that right? Or is it? Okay, Thursday night is our another evening meeting. And then Monday night is our day meeting. And so I'll get you the specifics on that before we leave. But again, thank you for those of you who are here. I do want to recognize a couple of individuals who are here for support and just in case there are questions. My colleague on the board from the Fairfield District, Supervisor Roscoe Cooper, is here this evening, and he has a meeting on October the 30th at, where is it? At the Harvey Elementary School at 7 or 6? 6:30. All right, 6:30 on the 30th at Harvey Elementary School. And then our county manager, who's not really on the speaking agenda, but at any point, if he wants to come and share, he can. Our county manager, Mr. John Vitoakis. Our planning commissioner is also here, just in case there are some questions for him that I may not know the answer to. And our planning director is speaking tonight. Also, I think our new assistant director is here for Department of Public Works. And then Barb Dodd is here. She is working with us, Board of Supervisor members. And Victoria Davis is here as support. We have our community officers. We have our media relations team here this evening. So I just want to make sure that I shout out all of the paid staff persons. All right. Supervisor Cooper asked me that I want you guys to move up, fill in, and I said, this is Varina, and so people sit where they want to at our meetings, and we are appreciative of that. All right. So we've got 2 main presentation topics, and then as we always do, I'll open the floor up for any specific questions or conversations that you may have after the presentations. First presentation is going to come from our Recreation and Parks Director, Mr. John Zanino, and we've got I think some pretty good things that are happening within our Recreation and Parks department. Some really cool things, and so I'm going to ask him to come. He's going to present, then we'll take questions from the floor, and after that, Mr. Joe Emerson, who is our planning director, is going to come and talk about a new proposed zoning area. And it'll just be the beginning of conversations. We're going to take the show on the road and get as many public comments as possible as we are seeing where we go with this new proposed rezoning category. But let's start with Recreation and Park.
All right, thank you, Reverend Nelson. I have to agree, we have a lot of exciting things going on in the Recreation Department, but specifically in the Varina District. So if I haven't met you yet, my name is John Zanino. I'm the Director of Recreation and Parks. And I want to start by talking about 3 projects in the Varina District that are at various stages to kind of give you guys some updates on where we're at with some of these projects. Okay, that was not the one I was thinking was first, but I will go ahead and do that one first. So at 4 Mile Creek, we are thanks to funding from Reverend Nelson, going to be creating a visitor experience at the trailhead at 4 Mile Creek. So if you're not familiar with this park, this is the busiest trailhead on the Capitol Trail, right on Route 5. And we recently did a project, I believe last summer, we cut the ribbon on a new restroom facility out there. But what I'm going to talk to you about is this visitor experience and welcome center that we are going to construct at 4 Mile Creek. So if you see from this rendering, you'll see kind of a picture of what the park currently looks like, and then next to that, a site plan that shows this structure that we are going to construct. This structure will be a replica of the original courthouse, but it is going to be an open air pavilion. So the first 3 walls of it will look exactly like the replica courthouse. But then once you come into the facility, it will be open air into the back, where we can interpret a lot of the county's history, specifically here in Varina, and on the land. So there is a number of stories that we will be interpreting on this site. From this place. We are specifically doing it open air because if you're familiar with this area of Route 5 and specifically this park, our primary user group is cyclists. And we wanted to be able to create something that would be open dawn till dusk, that they could use at any point in time, that we wouldn't necessarily have to have a designated staff just for a short window of time, but would also cater to that crowd so they wouldn't feel like they'd have to leave their bikes. They wouldn't, many of them wear those spurs that would tear up a floor. They won't have to take any of that off, and they'll still be able to and see what we're interpreting, but having it enclosed on 3 sides will allow us the opportunity to still interpret history through graphic panels, through multimedia, because we will be controlled from the elements. So that is the vision that we have for this site. We started the design. We're hoping to be going through the plan of development to get this under construction sometime spring of next year, with a completion either summer or fall. There are some really important historical landmarks coming up, specifically the 250th of this nation. So if we can put the gas pedal down and get this done before some of those celebrations, we look to do that. But this is an exciting project where we can enhance our history, tell stories, and then enhance that trailhead that already is one of the busiest on the Capitol Trail. The other thing that you might see from this rendering is we are creating a space, a vendor pad where we can bring food trucks in. So seasonally, we can bring vendors in where they could sell beverages or food items catered to that audience. And there'll be an outdoor patio area around this to try to encourage individuals to come in that area, but then they can also partake on the history that we can interpret. So this is an exciting project that hopefully we can get underway and completed summer or fall of 2026. Yes. We're not adding parking with this. We are looking to cater to the people that are already coming and the people on the trail itself. So we anticipate that most of the users will be the people that are there, the people that are utilizing the Capitol Trail. But we don't really have, if you're familiar with that site, we don't have a ton of space. There's a lot of wetlands on the property, and to add parking would significantly increase the cost. But then we're also trying to deal with how do we mitigate the wetlands? How do we deal with the additional impervious surface? How do we deal with the stormwater? So we didn't want to take on those added costs when we already have a built-in audience. And we're really catering to the people along the Capitol Trail. But yeah, good question. Yeah. We can certainly work on a signage package. I know that when we did a visitor center at Dabb's house, we had signage, so we can certainly work with signage on Route 5 and Interstate when we get this finished. So there's, well, and if when I get to the next project, you're going to hear some of the other things that we have planned right in this corridor. So our history staff has put together some ideas. We're presenting those ideas to our historical, the HPAC, the History and Preservation Committee, to really go through the stories that we're going to tell. But we've already presented to Reverend Nelson a number of possibilities that we can interpret on this site. And there really is numerous stories, both from indigenous to Civil War to the Varina community as a whole. And we are looking to interpret as many of those as we can. I mean, also potentially having exhibits that rotate so that it is not just stagnant and will be the same thing for the next decade. We could have exhibits today, but have it designed in a way that in 6 months from now, we could rotate out different exhibits so we can tell more stories than just the handful that might be selected upon opening. Let's see. So this is the other project that I was talking about, the New Market Heights Trail, which will really essentially start at this 4 Mile Creek trailhead and be on the other side of the road. So this past summer, we had a community meeting specifically talking about this trail alignment. And it really is going to be a proposed trail from the 4 Mile Creek park all the way down to Deep Bottom. We will have to cross Route 5 and then go through Parkland, and then we're working with several other landowners that we would be in the Varina area to complete this trail. It would be a 3.2 mile trail, again, going from the New Market Heights Park, which is just across the street from the 4 Mile Creek, and then would end at Deep Bottom. This is a north-south, so we will tie into the Capitol Trail, and you, through the Capitol Trail, could get from Dory Park all the way down to Deep Bottom. So just a few updates. We are still in the planning stage of this. We have put together a team of both county representatives and some landowners in the East End on a project. And we are soliciting some funding. We've actually applied for grant funding. We've applied for a transportation alternative grant, but we are about to start some of the work around 4 Mile Creek and New Market Heights. There is a wetland and stream restoration project that Public Works will be working on, but part of that project will be the opportunity to do some of the trails on that northern section of the alignment with that project. And then as we get some funding, we will work on funding the full alignment, which will go down to Deep Bottom. Not talking about it today, but down at Deep Bottom, we have a park project, which was part of the 2022 bond referendum, a $7 million project that can do the trail alignment on the southern section. So we're able to use a couple different methods to fund some of this, but we are looking for funding to do some of those other sections, and we're see if we'll successful on those grants. I saw there was a question. Yes.
My question is, what's the plans? How are we going to connect those neighborhoods to these trails? Because it's dangerous coming from Darbytown trying to get to Route 5.
So I'll speak to the general plan. Public Works might be able to give you some more specifics, but we're using the Capitol Trail as kind of a backbone, and then building spurs off of that. Now, obviously, there's going to be need to create some better connection to that, but that's the Capitol Trail on this would be our east-west, and this is kind of a north-south trail. And then because the Capitol Trail is already there, trying to build spurs to get you connected to the Capitol, which would then get you connected to this. Right. So I can't speak to some of the public works projects. I'm happy if at the end we can get you connected with public works. But that's the general plan, is using the Capitol Trail as that spur. Yeah.
So one of the projects, and it's going to be a connector, like main connection, and then spurs off. But we have a project on Messer Road that I can't remember if it's 26 or 27, that we are running a trail from Varina High School, like a bike trail from Varina High School down to the Capitol Trail. And so it's going to be project by project is what I would suspect. So the first part of, at least on Messer, is starting at the high school and creating a trail down Messer that connects you to the Capitol Trail on that side of Darbytown. And so it won't go back to Eagles Nest or Winding Woods or Darbytown Meadows or anything right now. But hopefully running off the Cap Trail, we'll get some spurs that can connect us to the Cap Trail, and that'll happen. It just takes time, takes money. So.
Thanks, Zach.
So obviously crossing Route 5 will be one of the things that we have to spend the most time on design, on how do you do that safely. I haven't seen those designs yet, but that is something that we're concerned about and taking into consideration during the design. So so this is a little outside of the recreation realm, but wanted to talk about it. So if you're not familiar, hopefully you've heard of this project, but out at the Wilton property, schools will be working to build the first living building in the K-12 environment in the world. This is really one of those legacy projects. It was a vision that Reverend Nelson and Dr. Cashwell had. And we are now getting to the end of the design, and we'll be starting construction soon with a completion of the school next calendar year. So if you're not familiar with this, it will be a living building for really all of the school system, but specifically Varina High School's specialty center for the environmental studies. This will be their home base, but it will also be used for field trip programs for schools throughout Henrico to be able to come. It will be a 15,000 square foot building. It's nestled on 60 acres, although they're not developing all of those acres. You'll see on the next slide kind of what that footprint looks like. But we are attempting to get the living building certificate, which looks at 7 different performance standards. So those 7 performance standards are place, so restoring a healthy interrelationship with nature. Water, so the property has to be a net positive water use, has to be net positive on energy. So not just off the grid, but actually providing energy to the grid. Another pillar is health and happiness, materials that are used, equity, and beauty. So those are the 7 petals that are trying to be achieved. And once achieved, it will be the first K-12 education facility in the world to have that. There's only 30 buildings worldwide that have received the Living Building Challenge. So time-wise, looking to go under construction later this year, with next fall being their open. It's a $16 million project, and we couldn't be more excited to bring this project to fruition. And I believe the next slide has a kind of an aerial of where it will be nestled on the property. So if you're familiar with this property, it kind of goes back to what we have called Whale Lake. So it will have a little bit of a trail system that would give access to that lake, but this is kind of towards the back of that property. So kind of pivoting a little bit on some of our upcoming events. So specifically here in the Varina district, we have a fall festival, or did we just have this? No, this coming weekend, we have a fall festival out at Dory. For the farmers market, we also have an open house at Clark Palmore. And this year we will continue our Holiday Express tour, but we're actually going to start in the Varina district, and that will be the first week in December. A few other events. So at Henrico Theater, we'll be hosting the Jazz Ambassadors. That is the U.S. Army band. They tour the country. They've been to the theater 2 other times. They only come through this area about every 5 or 6 years. So that will be an exciting night. And then we also have dollar movies and a bunch of other exciting programs out there. Before I go to my last slide, I did want to give you guys a few updates on things at Taylor Farm Park and a few things out at Dory. So Taylor Farm Park, if you're not aware, we received our first national award. We just received that award back in September, but it is a national award for innovation in park design. And only one locality and one park is chosen each year, and your Taylor Farm Park was the 2025 recipient of that. Due to its popularity, we've already done some improvements. So we opened last summer. This past spring, we went back in and redid some work around the interactive play stream, made some improvements there to handle the capacity of the individuals. And then about 2 weeks ago, we started a project to add parking, because that's one of the biggest challenges is we don't have enough parking. So we just started that, and we'll be done with that in the next 6 to 8 weeks, but we're adding 100 additional spaces. We're adding spaces for bus parking, because one of the challenges we have is buses are coming in and taking up regular parking spots. So we'll add, I believe, 3 bus spaces, 100 parking spots, and then we're adding a little support building. We're also planning, and at the end of this, we'll be looking at some added shade structures, particularly over by the skate park area, and then in the main play area, adding some swings, and specifically ADA accessible swings. The site currently only has 2 swings, and we're going to add another bay of 4 swings, and some of those will be designated for ADA accessibility. Out at Dory Park, probably our busiest park for events. I know the farmers market is out there. We were funded in this current fiscal year to add a restroom up at the front by the farmers market and splash pad. So we are under the design of that. But a new restroom will be coming to the park, but by that splash pad and farmers market area. It'll also help support all of the events that we do up at the front end of that park. So we're excited about that. Just got the money for that this past July. So we're designing that, and more to come on that, but wanted to touch on some of the things specifically at Dory. And then the last thing I'd like to talk about is a new initiative we've launched in the department to solicit feedback. One of the things that we have noticed in our park system, particularly people who are out in the parks, who use our trails, our shelters, is not, people don't often know how to get in touch with us. People in the rec centers know they can just go up to the rec center, but if you're on a trail at a shelter and you have a concern, you see a maintenance issue, you might not know the best way to provide that feedback to us. So we have launched a QR code, and when you scan that QR code, it will take you to a form where you can provide that feedback. We are going to be canvassing our parks and all of our high traffic areas with signs looking very similar to this with a QR code, and you scan that code. It's intended that most people are going to do this on their phones, although you can do it on a computer, but you can then directly give us feedback, tell us where you're at. It is literally one page. It's just where are you at, what type of feedback, and then what is the feedback. If you want to provide us your contact information, that is optional. You don't have to. But if you do provide us your contact information, we'll follow up with you on whatever your request is, and tell you where we're at in fixing or addressing whatever that concern is. So the site is live now, and we have just approved the signs. So in the next several weeks, you'll start seeing these signs pop up throughout the park system. I think we're ordering 300 or 400 signs. So you're going to see them in our shelters. You're going to see them in our high trafficked areas, our dog parks, pickleball courts, trailheads. But this is really just intended for you, the residents, to provide us direct feedback. All of our other forms of feedback are still in place, so this isn't replacing anything. So if you're used to dealing with a particular person on our staff, a particular, you can still call us, you can still send us emails to those traditional methods, but this is an additional method specifically geared to people in the parks to provide us that feedback. So we're hoping that, if you guys see something, scan the QR code, send us a quick note, and we can address those issues. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions. Yes.
Can you hear? Concerning the Courthouse Creek Visitor Center, I want to thank Supervisor Nelson for rescuing that plan. And it's a little bit of a change from the original concept, but would there be consideration in the future to expand on that to make it a little bit more of a visitor, like a real visitor center in the sense of possibly creating a couple jobs to man a structure where things can be sold, like souvenirs from Henrico County, and people that are visiting the area along Route 5, that going on 295 and Route 5, that they want to stop there and look at a similar mini museum and possibly in the future. Like I said, thank you, Supervisor Nelson, because we'll have something for July 4th of 2026. So that's appreciated. But in the future, would there be a vision like that would be expanded to do something like that?
That's a good question. I think anything is possible. I think the idea for this particular piece is not a full building. It's a replica. It's almost it's a combination of what was shared about the old colonial courthouse structure, while yet contemporizing it so that it could be used by people who are frequenting the trail, etc. I think that's kind of how we got to this versus a full standing building with an employee. I think the thing that kind of excited us as we were talking about it was it didn't need an employee. So we looked at Dav's house and how we had limited. And I know me and you have talked about this before, so I know you've said we could get volunteers, etc. But the dusk to dawn concept, it is being open as long as the trail is in use, and I think those are some of the things that kind of were exciting about the flexibility of it being more than just a brick and mortar building. And so it's not really a museum, but it will house history of Henrico County. So what's inside that will be the focus of it. But it's not in concrete right now. We're still open, so we'll continue to kind of have those conversations. And if there's anybody here that has ideas to add to it, please let us know. Yes. Mm-hmm.
But there's no fam to help every situation. And is there any way that there's collaboration of volunteers? Same, it's a great part. We have all these great parts that are invested in, but they need to be taking care of like the community. And so if there's any way that we can make a call on the community, volunteers to help keep these parks, because it's great, it's great investment. We need them. But it seems like we need, like there's help needed to keep up with what's going on.
That was one of the reasons we launched this feedback form. So if you were to scan that QR code, not only does it give you a place to give us feedback, but it also gives you our immediate contact numbers. Because Taylor Farm we do have a full-time groundskeeper and people on site, but they are doing other jobs. So their job is not necessarily customer service to the playground. So they're not there just problem solving or troubleshooting that. So the hope was when we put these signs out there that it will give you the place where you can directly reach out to us in that moment for us to be able to provide some level of service. Not opposed to looking down the road at more volunteer opportunities on what that could potentially look like. That is not something we currently have in our park system, but there are examples in other localities of doing friends of groups. So if there is desire in the community, we can have conversations of what that would look like. But that is part of that reason for this feedback form, is not just, hey, we see a trash can overflown, but it's, hey, there's a concern, or who do I contact right now? I don't want to just send an email in, who can I call? So that's kind of the point of that is, so with that and with some signage, our hope is you can scan that, and if you didn't know where you can immediately call, you then would have that information. Yes.
I want to ask, is it going to be the responsibility of maybe Henrico, or possibly is it just the Capitol Trail that could think about putting a light at the crossing at Dorian Road when we stop from coming from near Dory Park, crossing that bridge? It's taking your life in your own hands crossing Dorian Road there to go to the 4 Mile Creek Park. It's very dangerous.
Doran and Route 5. So you're talking about the hill? Yeah, so there's a roundabout. So let's talk afterwards. Yeah, I need a visual, and so I'll get our DPW person. Yeah, so it's a roundabout there at on Doran, right where I think it's Doran Forest and 4 Mile Creek, slowing down the traffic. So there's a roundabout there. There's going to be a roundabout at the end on Route 5 of Doran. So that'll be there in the next year or so. But I'm not really sure. But okay. All right. Okay. Well, duly noted, sir. If you're making note over here, thank you. All right. Any other questions? This was supposed to be my short presentation. So any other questions for John Zanino? All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. We're going to move to our second presentation of the evening. And again, I do want to recognize, for those of you who came in late, my colleague on the Board of Supervisors is with us from the Fairfield District. I want to publicly thank him because he doesn't have to be here. So thank you, sir, for coming to Varina and be supportive. And our representative for the State Senate also joined us this evening, State Senator LaSharice Aird. So after the planning presentation, I'll give her opportunity to just say a few words. Also, Becky Lakin is in the back. She is representing Henricopolis. And who else? Anybody else that's serving? I've already mentioned Mr. Mackey. Charging my head, not to my heart, if I missed you. All right. Well, thank you. Norma Harris, I think. Is that Norma Harris behind the mask? Yes. Equalization, Real Estate Equalization Board. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Joe Emerson. We are proposing conversation, conversation to start with these community meetings here in Varina, but this is a countywide conversation about rural preservation in the county, which primarily will be centered in the Varina district. And so we are putting this out, and then we're going to take the public conversations on the road to hear from our citizens, all right, the residents of Henrico County. And so Mr. Emerson is going to share this evening what this proposal looks like. And then, so let me ask if we can hold the questions until he finishes the presentation. Then we'll take all the questions, all right? Let him get through the presentation first. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Nelson. As Reverend Nelson mentioned, I'm Joe Emerson. I'm the Director of Planning with the county. Certainly happy to be here with you this evening. And while we try to get our AV lined up here, I do have some information to share with you. I'm excited about it. I find it very interesting. I hope you will as well. And let's see if my show will work. There we go. I believe it just did. I think it did. Thanks, Barb. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be out this evening and discuss our comprehensive plan update with you. This update is, of course, as many of you know, is called Henrico Next, and it's making significant strides as we look back at this past summer. The focus has been on engaging the community, receiving based on feedback, and making tangible progress on completing the draft comprehensive plan. Throughout this entire process, we have been emphasizing the importance of community involvement in shaping our future. By actively engaging residents, we are ensuring any revisions reflect the needs and aspirations, leading to a more inclusive and effective planning process. Well, I thought we had it working. Is that working for us? Yeah, I may have to go back there and do it. The public engagement, again, as I noted, has been a critical component of the Henrico Next process. This has included our participation in various community events. As the plan process ramped up, our listening sessions last year that ensured our larger vision statements were in line with community aspirations, and the recent future land use suggestion sessions where we were able to discuss specific land use recommendations for each property in the county with many residents. This most recent round of engagement included the posting of draft land use maps on our website and meetings at the high schools in each district. The overall changes to the future land use maps were relatively minor and focused on creating redevelopment corridors to help accommodate anticipated growth. As you know, you've heard that theme from us. We really are interested in the redevelopment corridors with this version of the comprehensive plan. The suggestion sessions provided residents and other stakeholders an opportunity to view a video about the Henrico Next process and goals for each meeting. After viewing the video, interested residents were able to visit with staff to discuss specific properties and what was planned in their area. They were then provided the means of placing comments on our online mapping tool at the meeting, or they could do so at home at a more convenient time. This meant that anyone attending the meeting or visiting the Henrico Next website was able to provide comments on our draft maps and suggestions. If you'd hit that next slide, John. Thank you. The feedback from these suggestion sessions has been invaluable. Over 130 residents participated, providing insights on the draft future land use maps. Notably, more than half of the comments focused on managing development intensity, highlighting community desires for preserving agricultural land and rural character. Again, this feedback is essential as we consider broader changes to our land use strategies, ensuring they align with the community values and priorities. This leads us to work towards the next step in our process, which is revising our plans based on the comments we received from the community. The comments we received ranged widely, from specific requests for changes to property to more general comments on larger land use policies. As part of this exercise, we categorized the comments into one of 5 key themes, similar to what was done with earlier public input surveys. Those themes included development intensity management, transportation infrastructure, supporting development and revitalization, natural resources, parks and recreation facilities. This means that at least 2 of the key themes were related to managing the intensity of development and the protection of natural resources. In fact, almost half of the comments we received were related to this larger goal of preservation of land in the county. So that led us to this suggestion of changes in what we were working on. The change is the creation of a new future land use designation called prime agricultural rural conservation. The definition of this new designation is on the screen behind me. As described, we are including many areas already used or suitable for agricultural uses, as well as those where we don't anticipate expanded infrastructure or rezoning for more intensive uses over the lifetime of the updated plan, which is 2045. We also want to use this new designation to emphasize that intended uses include agriculture, agricultural support uses, and residential uses on large lots. In addition to the definition, we have drafted 4 focus policies for this land use group as reflected on the screen. I would note these are also on our website now, so if you want to go back and look at them later, they are available to you. These focus policies aim to maintain the historical rural character of these areas by promoting larger lot sizes and limiting public utilities. We can ensure that new developments align with the community's vision for preserving open space and agricultural land. Considering these policies as future ordinance revisions and land use decisions are made will help solidify our commitment to sustainable land use and community values. This includes a potentially systemic change in how we handle the by right subdivisions of agricultural land in certain areas of the county. Henrico has historically had a relatively small agricultural lot minimum of 1 acres per home. With this new change, we recommend increasing the minimum lot size to 5 acres in the PARC areas through future amendments to the zoning ordinance. This is a guideline that would be placed in the comprehensive plan. If acceptable, the board would then move forward after adoption of the comprehensive plan with changes to the zoning code that would implement from a 1 acre division to a required 5 acres for each division by right in the area. We would also discourage the extension of water and sewer service and explicitly encourage the conservation of land in these areas through the creation of conservation easements. So we've talked about the what this big change could be, and the why was driven by the feedback we received from the community. Now we need to talk about the where. On the screen behind me is the Varina District Future Land Use Map that was presented to the public during the suggestion sessions. As expected, this area of the county was discussed extensively at our Highland Springs High School meeting, which wrapped up our series of meetings in the late spring. As you can see, large areas of Varina were already designated for rural residential or prime agricultural uses, or had their designations changed to government to reflect the county's historic investments in preservation in the area. Even with those designations and commitments, we believed we could do better. Building on the focused policies that would recommend limiting utility extensions and increasing the minimum lot size, we examined all the recommended land uses in Varina, especially those east of 295. The result of that is what you see on the screen. It's an expansion on an already good idea. Our area is designated prime agricultural by recognizing that land east of I-295 and south of White Oak Swamp is not particularly suitable to more intense development. This slide highlights the notable areas of change, which are in addition to the application of the focus area policies that would now apply to those areas in the darker green. Some of the notable changes include the reconsiderations of properties previously designated for rural residential or suburban residential 1, which would now be included in the PA-RC designated areas. Those areas are highlighted by the areas circled on the maps behind me. This includes properties in the Turner Road corridor north of Route 5, as well as areas east of Elko Road, south of Williamsburg Road. I'd note here that this recommended change would not impact properties already entitled, such as the Ridings, which could still be built in accordance with their approved zoning. Another notable one is the one I refer to as Siphon at the intersection of Buffin and Kingsland. The results of these proposed changes, I think, are substantial. Approximately 23,000 acres would now be designated prime agricultural, rural conservation, and subject to the recommended focus area policies. This is in addition to the over 3,100 acres held by the county and recommended for a government designation, over 1,800 areas designated open space recreation, and over 9,000 acres designated EPA. In all, approximately 27% of Varina would be designated PARC. When you include the government, OSR, and EPA properties east of I-295, we can see that over 47% of Varina and 26% of the county as a whole would be impacted by this discussion. In addition, not in that number, are 4,446 acres in conservation easements and 3,065 acres held by the USA, Battlefield Trust, and other entities. So when we consider that over 47% of Varina is involved in this conversation, what does that mean for the plan update as a whole? We know that we still anticipate annual growth of around 1%. That has been discussed with all of you as part of our background studies and research. We'll just need to figure out how to reallocate some of that into the areas east of I-295, since this area could have accommodated somewhere in the order of 9,000 residential units under current zoning. That's the 1 acre per residential unit. The proposed development standards would drop this to about 4,300 units if the changes that we're discussing tonight were enacted by the board. Now, in our overall modeling, as we looked at our growth models for the comprehensive plan, we really were only allocating about 500 homes to this area because the growth in this area is not as rapid as it is in other sections of the county. So really, for the lifespan of the plan, we're talking about finding a place essentially for 500 more homes countywide. While it is unlikely this level of development would have occurred in this area in the near future, these numbers are still helpful as they provide a sense of the scale. Preliminary discussions with our consultant indicate we can likely accommodate this growth in various redevelopment corridors we've been discussing, but that sort of infill does bring challenges of its own, as you know, as you try to alter the development pattern and use existing infrastructure. So what's next with regards to this recommendation and the plan as a whole? On October 9th, we presented these findings to the Planning Commission. We will now work to incorporate these new recommendations into the draft plan. As that discussion continues, we'll continue working with our consultants to finalize the various plan elements, including the introduction, key planning influences, which is already posted on our website, our environment, managed and sustainable growth, safe and connected spaces, high quality living places, and the implementation. So those are our elements of the plan. Those are the chapters that you would have referred to them in the past that contain all the information in the plan and the guidance. With this most recent change, we can complete the rest of our fiscal and transportation modeling. So then I expect these chapters will be in front of the Planning Commission, hopefully around the holidays, if not very quickly thereafter around the first of the year. As that work progresses, we anticipate taking the draft plan elements out to the community in a final round of public engagement prior to the required public hearings in front of the Planning Commission and the board. We'll continue to take active steps to ensure our community is aware of this important document. So with that said, that completes what I have for you this evening. Process is ongoing. Certainly, I'll be happy to field any questions you may have.
Good. Yep.
Okay, first of all, my first question is related to, public engagement. They always encourage, you always encourage for people to sign up to emails. I've never gotten an email from Henrico Next. I have to go looking, or I email you all, to ask these questions, but I've never gotten an email from Henrico Next. So that's worrisome to me when what percentage of Henrico County residents participated on these community engagement meetings. So that's one thing. Emails are not going out, not sure what's happening. The second one, when you all do the community engagement meetings, can there be a presentation first explaining this, then a question and answer? And then if you need to, you can have the posters around. It seems like the efficient way to do it would be to have a presentation of what you're talking about so people can understand. Can't tell you how many times, I'm sure you all have heard it. People come out of the meetings and they still don't understand what it is that the county wants. So meaning it gets confusing and they don't feel like they can truthfully participate. So can we please commit to doing a presentation, not like the presentation for the traffic study? That was not a presentation. A presentation explaining what each of these things are, and then allow for people to have question and answers. And then you can have the posters for if somebody else needs to ask more questions or they want to see, they can go. But can that please, it's not that much. And it actually is more efficient for you all and for people that don't need to have that many questions to just go ahead and go and leave if they need to leave. Just a question. Thank you.
Well, certainly. Well, first, I'll apologize to you about the emails. That's the first I've heard of that. As far as I know, the emails have been going out. We haven't had any negative comments regarding them, so I'll check on that. As far as the public participation, most of our meetings have had the videos prior to. We found it more efficient over time that people gain better information, being able to talk individually with staff and ask their questions. Certainly last time we did do one additional meeting for Varina where we did exactly what you mentioned. But the rest of the county and as a whole, the more interactive meetings with staff and people being able to come in, go through at their leisure, collect information, has been very successful in the past and I believe has worked very well thus far, but certainly we can consider that.
Hi.
Hold on for 1 second. So for Varina, because generally I hear these concerns in Varina, then we'll do that style in Varina. I hear it from the same people. It's not like, I'm going to be honest with you. It's not like I hear this complaint from, like a lot of people. I only hear this complaint from 2 or 3 people, but we'll do it if it makes people feel comfortable that we are trying to, so maybe we'll have an additional meeting just to do it that way.
Hi. I think something that would have been helpful for me as a resident watching this was just seeing like maybe a map overlay because I wasn't truly clear on what areas were impacted as it related to my understanding of how Varina's laid out. So I think just from a context of like making it make sense for me, that would have been helpful. I guess, and this may not be this session, so please let me know if it's not. But I think one of the things I'm really interested in is there seems to be a lot of plans for really appreciating land in Varina, recognizing it, creating more access in our parks. I really love it. But what else is going to attract people to make use of these spaces in a way that benefits the county, beautifies the community? I mean, are there plans to invest in small businesses? Like I think about driving down Williamsburg Road, or I think, yeah. And there's lots of vacant businesses. Like, what are we doing to like bring small businesses? I mean, we're a farm community. How can we create partnerships with the farmlands, like use their, use the things that we have that we're claiming we love about Varina. We're recognizing these spaces to grow it.
So, so let me start with what are we doing right now? Our investment into Williamsburg Road, 9 Mile Road, the corridors that I assume you are speaking of, where the small businesses are. There are some tools that small businesses can take care of. I mean, they can take a part in, and so things that we can do to the outside of the buildings, etc. We have an opportunity going forward. Our Economic Development Authority has not always kind of focused on small business as something that was a really important part of what we did. And so going forward, we are looking at hiring a new EDA director, board of supervisor members. The first time in my decade and a half of being on the board that I am hearing a consensus from my colleagues that small business, bringing in new business, investing in small businesses, et cetera, is something that is, I think, going to guide who we possibly bring in as our new director. So hopefully, going forward, this will be something that we will focus on. There are persons who are amongst you, even now, who have met with a couple of us with ideas about agritourism and ways to make sure that we can capitalize off of the agricultural work and growth that's being done here. And I know me and another colleague met with a couple of folks that are here this evening with some agritourism ideas that hopefully we'll make sure end up in the comp plan. So what have we done to this point? Some things. What can we do? A lot more. So thank you for your question, and we're going to continue to try to move forward in that area that you have pointed out. Yes.
So slightly off topic, but kind of relevant to that is something we're doing out at our Runnymede property is a community farm. So we will be later this fall be looking for applicants. We're actually kind of do a little bit of a ceremony out there, but we're taking farmland and giving residents the opportunity to have small lots. These are not, we're calling it a farm, not community gardens. So don't think planters, think quarter acre to half acre plots. But that is an area that we're able to use some of this land, teach some residents how to farm. And so that's something that's coming out in that area.
And map overlay. So if you go to your browser, I think do Henrico next, put it in there. You can zoom in on the maps in Henrico next, and you can get a clear view of some of the overlay that you were looking at. But if not, get with me afterwards or get with Joe, and we'll answer your question more directly about the overlays. All right. Next question. Yes.
I have more of a quick comment, I guess. Just going back to your chapters, I really find it surprising that we're not including some more sustainable aspects such as healthcare access. And the big kicker in our area is always education, school facilities. I think that's definitely key to helping improve our area.
Yes, sir. All that's included. That comes under some of the titles of infrastructure and community needs and things of that. All that is included. Those are very broad categories. Current plan has 12 chapters. So where we're taking it this time is we're combining a plan that actually has grown. If I broke it up into individual chapters, I'm guessing it might hit 16 this time. So we broke it down into those 5 topical areas. And then within those areas, as you go through the plan, those topics are addressed. So we're not forgetting them. I agree with you. They're important.
And I know we had some questions and concerns recently about development patterns and how they affect schools. And I will, well, I don't want to hold a meeting up, but I'll come back. But just to give you guys an idea of where we are, functional capacities as it relates to schools and development patterns. I know I'll take our 2 high schools, for example, and I don't have all the numbers because I just took pictures of the high school. Varina High School right now only has, as of last Tuesday, I think, 1,306 students and a functional capacity of 1980. So they're at about 66%. And I think Highland Springs is 1747 with a functional capacity of a little over 2,000. So about 86%. So even as we are looking at zoning cases, we talked about this in our Board of Supervisors meeting last week. We don't consider any rezoning of a property without looking at its impacts on schools. In the western part of the county, I think four of our 9 high schools are over 100% capacity. So Varina High School right now is at 66%, which is well under functional capacity. And Highland Springs is, I guess, 300 students under capacity. So just hearing you talk about schools and thinking about that as it relates to how we look at growth patterns and all that in the county. Do know that as Board of Supervisors, as we are planning out school capacity is always important, and the health of our residents too. And so I'll talk more to you about that too. All right, other questions before we open the floor up? Where's the first one? Who has the mic? Okay.
Thank you so much. And Reverend Nelson, thank you for holding the meeting tonight. I will tell you that I'm extraordinarily excited about what was presented and the opportunities and areas for growth. I'm going to try not to ramble, but I'm that excited. So first, I want to say this past weekend, thank you so much to Rec and Parks and to the county as a whole and to Hart and to Keep Henrico Beautiful for the great native plant festival out at Dory. It was a real draw from not just Varina, not just Henrico, but the whole region. It was tremendous and something we can grow on. I think what you're presenting is bigger than Varina. I mean, it's obviously on the map, it shows Varina, but it's bigger. It's all of Henrico, because when you look at the surveys, and I know y'all look at them in great detail, what people focus on, one of the things that they focus on is one of the things they find most wonderful about Henrico is the fact that it is its proximity to the rural areas and to agriculture and all of those historical things. So I think one of the keys will be for us to make sure that it is bigger than Varina, and that it shows the opportunity for the whole county to do something great. And it will also take some of it will allow some of the resources that might otherwise go into developing the infrastructure, the sewer and water, to be put back into those corridors that you were talking about for redevelopment. And then finally, and Reverend Nelson and I talked about this, what I would ask that other folks do, this is such an important task that we're facing. The 3 meetings are going to be extraordinarily important, the roadshow and the feedback there. But at the end of the meeting tonight, and I've got permission to do this, this is going to be, I would like for anybody who's interested to provide their contact information, and we'll create a citizens working group, as you will, that will not be, it will be outside, it won't be sanctioned by the county, but it will be in conjunction with what's going forward, so that we can bring back some organized feedback, if you will, and we can vet some ideas and we can work on some things so much. I will be in the back. I'll just have my tablet and we'll take names, and I've committed to being at the other meetings for the same thing, so that we can kind of put our feedback together and recognize some of the questions we have and maybe invite some folks to come in and speak to it. So I realized there was no question in there, and I apologize for that, but I appreciate the opportunity to share all of that.
Thank you. Thank you for recognizing that there was no question in there. Some people don't do that. So we did talk about that, and I think that's helpful. Groups getting together, vetting stuff, talking to each other, and I think sometimes we get stronger feedback that way. A couple more before I share what I think, and then we open the floor. Who else? Yes. She's coming to you.
Everything over here is green. But what I worry about is the development intensity in some places on the other side of 295, that maybe it doesn't need to be just a straight line that over here you got this and over here you got that. I know specifically the riverfront corridor from Tree Hill Farm to Wilton has a lot of acres of, high density future land use on it now. And I know we talk about the infrastructure, and we usually talk about water and sewer being infrastructure. But really, to me, what we're all impacted with living right here is the road infrastructure. And not even just the county road infrastructure, but the getting into the city infrastructure and coordination with the city. And sadly, we've got the river there, and it causes a major problem. And, we're going to be a broken record about this over and over again. I mean, after this week, when one street got cut down for repaving, everybody out here couldn't get to work. I mean, it'd be one thing if you could get on 895 and go to Chesterfield, but these are people that work downtown, or the children go to school downtown. So I just want you to maybe go back and relook at your land uses you have put on some of these parcels and think, is the infrastructure really going to be able to support that? That's all.
Thank you. I'll answer that for Plan Director. We continue to take in. I know, Blaine, you've shared that a lot, and we're trying to hear from as many people as possible. Varina is the district itself is over half of the land mass, 60-some thousand people, and definitely we thank you for that feedback and take that into consideration. All right. Anybody else? Yes.
Supervisor Nelson, can we ask a favor? Is there any way that we can get communication with Richmond City? Friday was unbelievable at 4:00 in the afternoon. It took 40 minutes to get out of Shockoe Bottom. And I don't know what they do with the traffic department, but they closed Dock Street while Williamsburg Road is. God forbid, thank goodness I didn't hear about any medical emergencies. If there had been one, cars could not get through to get to the emergency.
All right. So
Thank you.
My friend over here is taking notes, and we'll try to get information to make sure that they are better thinking through what streets they're closing, when they're closing them, etc. You guys know we have no jurisdiction in Richmond, but we'll definitely let them know the impacts on Henrico County citizens. So thank you. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. Anybody else before we move to open? Yes.
So, I'm not sure if my request or point is really directly related to this, but it certainly saying this makes me think about something that's concerned me for a long time. I've lived in Varina. We've lived in Varina now for about 30 years. And I work in the city. And when she just mentioned the traffic, I travel down that way, down Williamsburg or down that route to go to work every day. And I know at some point it comes into the city of Richmond. And it doesn't seem like we have any kind of leverage with them to take care of the roads. I've really torn up my car the last 12 years. So going there. And then when you look at Williamsburg Road, I'm not sure where the city cuts off, where Henrico starts. But if you come through there, sometimes I ride through there and I look around and it really is disappointing to me. It doesn't feel like a good place. It doesn't feel like a place where people would be happy to live. The maintenance seems to be subpar. If you go to the other end of the county, it's a lot cleaner. And I just wish we could get some kind of leverage or some kind of not blaming anybody in the room. I'm just being a honestly citizen that's lived here for 30 years. And it hasn't changed. And it seems like we should be putting some pressure somehow on that to make that better. Because it kind of reflects, whether you're in Richmond or Henrico, you're thinking Henrico, you're thinking Varina, and you're thinking our neighborhoods on that side of town. Thanks.
All right, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And it's a battle that we fight. One thing serving this district is, honestly, I'll be honest, I probably have the most difficult job on the Board of Supervisors. No disrespect to any of my colleagues, but there are several different areas. I don't have just like one. It's the rural, it's the suburban and suburban problems, the challenges that come with trying to keep rural, and then urban problems. And even now, where it seems simple, where does the city end and the county start? It is the weirdest thing once you get back up in the neighborhoods on Williamsburg Road. And so it's not as simple as saying there's a sign where the county may, on Williamsburg, on one side of Williamsburg, be the county of Henrico, and then on the other side, it's the city of Richmond. And so I'd love to talk and get more specific with you, and we can kind of talk through some of the stuff that we're doing. But I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. Anybody else before we move on to just general questions? And then we can let you go home. This is a question about this? Okay, all right. Thank you all for coming this evening. It means a lot. The civility, I love it. We can talk and disagree or agree and still do it all in love.
Yes, in looking at this map, and I see the dark green, which are designated environmental protection areas, and in particular, I'm curious about the top of the county, which also extends into the western part of the county. That's the Chickahominy River, which is our border with Hanover. I want to know exactly what the environmental protection area means, and has the county considered enhancing that as, a draw for people who are interested in that river? I know it's designated a state scenic river, but it has no protections really as a water body. And it's also one of the richest biodiversity spots that's left in the county. And it seems to me we could be taking advantage of that instead of, there's a lot of places where it's really just kind of treated like a sewer.
Yes, sir. Well, it's designated environmental protection area. We didn't take the rural conservation up along that edge of the county. Most of it is surrounded by private property holders, so we don't have a lot of access to it. I think maybe one part might actually touch it, but the EPA area does protect it to a great extent. And then, of course, you have all your federal, state regulations that we participate along with those other entities in enforcing those. The other thing I would note to you, the Chickahominy is one of the water sources for the Newport News, Waterworks. So they keep a pretty close eye on that water quality as well. There's a lot of biosolids in it, just normally biosolids. So it's probably cleaner than you might think. But I don't disagree with you. Access would be great. We've got to figure out a way to do that.
So I'll chime in. This is not in the Varina district, but in the Brooklyn district, our current Glover Park expansion project. So we're preserving the northern portion of that park, about 80 acres that's on the Chick. There's a 3.1 mile trail network back there. So although you can't get directly to the water, there will be some overlooks, but we're preserving that area and putting trails through it so you can see that. So again, not specific in Varina, but it is in that watershed.
It's a beautiful river.
Hey, go ahead. You want to finish? Oh, okay. All right. All right. Yes, about this. Okay. All right, thank you. I think that's a good transition into the open comment period. I do want to let our senator have a word to share something to wrap up that conversation. So we're going to be having more community conversations, as Mr. Emerson pointed out, and we'll continue to communicate those and try to do them in different formats. Looking at the balance in the district is always important. For those who are pro-conservation and preservation, then I actually think this is a good thing. I mean, we are trying to commit to keeping Varina as green as possible. And, I think this is a huge stride in headed in that direction. I also want to make sure, though, that we never forget the rights of property owners. And, I don't own any significant amount of land, but I try to keep in mind those who do. And I never forget one of the conversations I had with a farmer who owned a significant amount of land, and that conversation reminded me that that land is an asset that for many persons is a retirement fund. And I think when we make decisions about how people's land will be used, I think we have to be sensitive to about how that impacts the individual landowners. And so that balance of conversation is important. So I'm looking forward to future conversation. Let's see where it goes. We're going to let Senator Aird come back, and then I'm going to open the floor for any questions that don't have anything to do with anything we talked about tonight.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Nelson, for the opportunity to speak briefly. Again, I'm LaSharice Aird, and I have the distinction of serving as your senator here in Varina. I just wanted to offer 3 comments. Primarily, in January of 2026, the General Assembly session will reconvene for its annual legislative session for 60 days. However, the process for legislative proposals is underway right now. And so as your legislator, state representatives have 3 roles. We appoint the judges, we adopt the budgets, and we vote on around the laws. My office is actively developing our legislative agenda for the next session. And so I want to extend the invitation for you to reach out to me in particular if you have any state level policies that you would like revisited or if you would like taken under consideration. I also wanted to add that one of the major priorities on our list is looking at how the Commonwealth of Virginia can protect Virginians regarding some of the federal budget changes that are actively underway. We know that a lot of individuals are worried about some of those proposals. And so at the state level, we are reworking our budget to determine how we can continue to provide resources and support for any of those services that may be proposed to be cut. Most time sensitive, we understand that right now the government continues to be shut down at the federal level. We have been made aware that for those individuals who are recipients of SNAP benefits effective November 1, if the government doesn't reopen, those will not be issued for the month of November. As a result, we are as a state trying to quickly work through various scenarios to continue to provide support for individuals who would fall into that category. And I would invite you to contact me if you have questions or concerns about how you may be affected by that if you are one of those individuals. And so thank you so much, Supervisor Nelson. I'll be here until after the meeting, but I just wanted to offer those comments. I can be reached at lasherisair.com or my email. All my information is public. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow. Nobody else got applause but Senator Ayer. All this good Henrico stuff, and it takes state information to get the applause. So thank you for being here with those updates. A couple things. Let me start first by saying I don't know if Mr. Lamont Folsom is here. He's the activities director for Varina High School, but I want to thank him for opening up the school tonight. I think there is a rule that we can't, during voting, I don't think we can have these type of activities or something. I think there's you can't do certain things at voting sites during voting season. So we appreciate Varina High School for opening up their doors today and for a meeting for me on next Monday. So I appreciate them doing that. I want to shout out the AD and the principal and their whole team for letting us be here. Next meeting is Thursday at 6 p.m. at Elko Community Center. So if you know anyone who missed the meeting tonight, wants to hear this information in person or online, Thursday at 6. And then Monday at 10 a.m., we're at the Henrico Theater. Right? Henrico Theater, 10 a.m. on Monday. Again, I want to shout out our county manager for being here, Mr. Joey Emerson, planning director, Mr. John Zanino, Rec and Parks director, our new assistant director of public works. Tell me your name one more time, sir. All right. So I'm not going to try to, I need to read that. So he has some cards and sharing. And so DPW is a huge part of what we do in the county. Again, Supervisor Cooper was here, but he had to do a online meeting at 7 o'clock. Again, Mr. Mackey, Victoria, Barb, our community officers, our public relations and media team, thank you. Somebody sent me this. I think this is somebody who's watching online, henriconext.us. If you want to go to the site where this information is, Henrico Next, HENRICONEXT.US. And it's there. I think the first slide when you go there, one of the first slides is join the mailing list. All right, so you can sign on and hopefully you'll get some updates from there. All right, questions, comments? Yes.
Especially based on the number of home sites that you can get on a piece of land. And so the calculation, I think Mr. Montgomery would agree with me, would be skewed to where that the conservation easement would not be practical for anybody. I think the conservation easements are an absolutely fantastic tool. But if you make a minimum of 5-acre lots, then the appraiser that's doing that work will have to adjust his numbers to where they won't be practical to do.
All right. Well, I think it's a couple of localities already. We did some research on that do 5-acre lots. So several localities actually do 5-acre lot minimums. But I have that, Mr. Welch, 5-acre lots may impact conservation easements. So we will check into that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I don't know. I think the use will vary. The program, I don't know how many students are in the program right now. I know the number increases every year. We don't have any school representatives here, do we? Yeah.
None of them are going to be housed directly there. The Varina Center will go there, but that's not going to be their primary.
That's not going to be their home base. So home base will be Varina High School, but they will be using the building. Building also will be used for community, et cetera. So it's not just a school's exclusive building. But we'll get that if that's important. How many, did you want to know how many were being housed there or what specifically? Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I don't think that's going to be a problem, but I'll look into that though. I'll get with the superintendent and get some information about that. Yes.
One comment and then one question. The comment you mentioned, you hear a lot just from a few people about your meetings. I'm one that do not talk with the county a whole lot, but I try to come to your meetings.
Yes, sir.
But I think the meeting that she was talking about as one from not talking to y'all a lot, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, that meeting would be hard pressed to hit a 1. The citizens were left out. You can have all the diagrams you want. That's just, you're confusing the people.
Okay.
The one that was a disaster. Anyhow.
Okay. Yes.
That gets them up. Now, the question I have heard from 2 different sources. I'm just telling you, you want somebody from outside of, other than Eileen and the rest of them who talk to you all the time. I'm telling you.
Yes, sir.
There's another one from the outside.
All right.
Okay. I've heard from 2 different sources that Henrico County has bought or is in the process of going to tear down the houses between Recreation Road and up through the high school that they bought and put a new settlement in there. Just hearsay from 2 sources. I'm just trying to figure, does the county know anything about it or do they have any plans for it?
Yeah.
So these people that tell me what's going on, I can tell them they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. So you said well, first of all, I don't think, I mean, I haven't heard about us buying land and tearing down houses. You said between Recreation Road and the hospital? Oh, okay. Okay, the elementary school. Okay, I was like the hospital. Yes, yes. No, sir. So whoever told you that, that's incorrect. All right. Yes, sir. But I thank you for bringing that. Yep. Who else? All right, because if you don't raise your hand, I'll end the meeting and we'll be done. So, yes. Hold on. I got 2 other people. Yes, sir.
The Wilton property,
Mhm.
it's going to be an education center. Is it going to be also open to the public as a park? And because that's such a great piece of land. Or is it going to be?
At some point, I think it'll be some recreation and park uses there. That won't be a part of the environmental living building piece, but I think at some point, we've not done a master plan for Wilton yet, so there are no other uses right now except for the educational piece.
And then the Haydad's Lake across from that. Have you
Haydad's Lake has been purchased, and right now, well, the only thing they can do is operate within the context of what the zoning is. I think the new group that has purchased the land has a similar concept as Hayes Lake. So that's what I've heard. And I've talked to them myself. So they want to create a more 21st century version of recreational use back there with the same kind of concept, swimming, etc. A family area. Yeah. Yes.
Sounds like a request received. Thank you.
I have
All right. Yes.
two quick questions or suggestions. Well, questions. Number one, the QTS traffic between Technology, Memorial, and Portuguese. I know we have the signs up saying no QTS traffic. Is there any plans of enforcing that? There are still people who will take those roads and come through. So there's no real enforcement of that.
So we definitely are hearing from the citizens as it relates to that. And I'm assuming that enforcement will start to happen soon. We are also trying to get with the actual shifts, the actual employees to try to layer when they'll be leaving, etc. So there are some moving pieces there, but I don't want to say when, but the enforcement part of it will happen soon.
And the next thing I would like to bring up, going down Charles City Road,
Mm-hmm.
when you get by the dumps, particularly in front of Republic Waste Facility,
Mm-hmm.
early in the morning, there's a huge backup of their dump trucks trying to come into that lot. And that road goes from, it's only 2 lanes. So once they back up, you have everybody crossing over the lanes trying to get through. It's not well lit. You can't really see the street markings. So I would ask if we can look in putting some lighting and on improving the street markings there.
All right, so that's in front of Republic on Charles City. All right, who's next? All right, all minds are okay. All right, it was almost there. All minds and hearts are clear. Let's go. Yes.
Good evening. Economic question for you. We've talked about it, but I just want to figure out where we're at. Right there at 9 Mile and Laburnum, we've talked about the Kmart, but then of course the Walgreens closed. Just seeing a little bit of, I don't want to call it blight, but maybe untapped potential in that area, especially with the number of new units that are coming online to the west with Glenwood Farms, Harvey Road, the old golf course. We're going to get a whole bunch of units, but what I don't want to see, and I don't think any of the citizens, we don't want to see a bunch of closed up shops. So wondering where we are at with that, if that's something that the EDA is looking at. I know last time me and you talked, it was the ownership was asking, for a reasonably high price for the old Kmart. But now we have another thing that's closed, that little, I don't even know what it is. If it's car lot, car financing, you really don't see anybody there. So it just feels like there's a lot of untapped potential, especially as a gateway coming further east through that section over to White Oak, to the hub of Eastern Henrico. So really just where are we at with that?
Properties, both of them are on sale. I mean, we've talked about this before. I'll share publicly what I've shared with you. The county can do but so much. We can't make people buy and open up, etc. We do have enterprise zoning there. And so there's some things that we can do if if individuals are interested. There are things that we can do outside the facade of the building. We can do things at the parking lot, et cetera. So there are things that we can do to encourage people to come. Now, on the Kmart side, there is interest. There's a private hope and public interest. And so I'll just leave it like that without going too far. We talked about healthcare, the possibility of healthcare in that area could be a potential. There are some very preliminary conversations about that site. There also is somebody who came this year, Mr. Mackey, I think it was this year, looking to make it a combo site of residential and multiple uses. So like a Chipotle or some other type stuff like that on the front, and then residential on the back end. So there are some conversations. They are not talking to me per se. So the only reason I know about that is because it will have to be rezoned because of the residential part of it. So there could be more people talking to the actual property owner, et cetera. I haven't heard much about the Walgreens across the street. So fingers crossed that something happens there that we want. All right, that we want. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, two quick questions. One, is there any talk about maybe like revitalizing or brightening, we'll use the lines coming from the airport? So like down where like the motels and all those things are, like, is that a discussion at all? That's number one. And number two, this may not be the time or place. You can shut me down.
Well, hold on. Let's deal with number one first.
Okay, well, I have
Do
two.
you, yeah. Oh, they're both about the same thing?
They are not.
Oh, okay, so can I just deal with the first one first? So are you talking about on Williamsburg Road? Or are you talking about, what road are you talking about?
Williamsburg down to Laburnum.
Okay, so yeah. Okay, yeah, I want to tell you something, but I can't tell you right now because it's still we're still in some negotiation. But there are going to be some things happening on Williamsburg Road real soon that are going to be game changing and transformational in that area. Williamsburg Road itself is a state road, so we have to work with VDOT. Anything we do, we can't do anything there without state permission. So those are things that we have to bring to them, but we are working on something really huge in that area that is going to really change things. So hopefully in the next month or two, you'll hear about something in that regard.
Okay, great. And then the second piece is, again, we've talked so much about appreciating Varina's landscape, agriculture, environment. There was discussions about a data center that was coming to Darbytown Road. Now maybe it's not. I just want to know, what does the conversation look like? Automation is integrated in the work that I do. I don't hate AI. I don't hate tech. What I do hate is the possibility of it being blocks away from where I live and all of the things that come with it. But if it were to come, what does it look like to develop policy around size, around emissions, around like, what does the conversation look like with committees? What are the conversations happening that will protect the residents, and also think about how for everything that comes to Varina, there's a plan to reinvest it and grow it and grow the community through education, through environmental protections, through agriculture, through all of the things that we love about this space. I just wonder what that looks like.
If you don't mind, how long have you been in Varina?
I'm new. I moved here in 2021 with my husband and our family.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I'll speak specifically about, and I'm assuming that you're talking about the newest data center case on Darbytown Road. Yeah, yes. So that case itself was withdrawn last week. All right. If I go back several months, there are zoning, and Joe, if you don't mind, I'm sorry to call you back up, but if you don't mind, there are certain zoning categories where hyperscale data centers can be built. And those are the really huge ones. And so earlier this year, we started a conversation about making sure that any hyperscale data center cases that came forward, they have to be heard by the Board of Supervisors. Generally, all of the hyperscale data centers, I think, are located within what we call the Tech Park area in Sandston, which is a part of the Varina district. What we have started to see and hear was there were data center companies that wanted to exist outside of the tech park. And so we, back in May or June, I think, voted on putting provisional use permits on any hyperscale data center cases that came forward, any large data center cases that came forward. They will have to be heard in the public. All right. So there had to be a public process. You as a citizen, as a resident, would get several different opportunities to speak to it. The first case that we had was the one that was recently withdrawn last week. All right. So from a perspective, it worked the way it should work. The company they had a community meeting. They were out in the neighborhoods. Whatever. They were talking to citizens. But then we had the process where you had to go through the planning commission, and that had a public hearing. Then it would have come to the Board of Supervisors with a public hearing. We ended up, the case ended up being withdrawn because a couple of us, I would say the majority of us, said that we were not going to support it. So they pulled the case. Now, the company is arguing the fact that they are vested. And I'll let Joe speak to what vesting means. But my simple version of it is, before we made it a provisional use permit case, that they feel like they had rights to the particular property because of what they've done. All right. We disagree that they're not vested. That's the reason it was going through a pub. So they will have to ask, I think, whether or not we will have to tell them whether or not they're vested or not. Then they can appeal it to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which the Board of Zoning Appeals is 5 persons. They each represent a magisterial district appointed by circuit court judges. And so that case, if they appeal it to that point, will be heard probably sometime at the end of the year, which I doubt it because it had to happen too fast, beginning of next year. Then if that is voted down, I'll just go to voted down route. Then they can appeal it to circuit court. So they can take it the court route or the appeal route right now. But as it relates to the Board of Supervisors giving them the opportunity to rezone the land, we were going to say no, so they withdrew it before that. All right. Reinvestment, we used a case last year, the QTS case in the tech park, to reinvest. And so we created a affordable housing trust fund out of it that we are using to buy down home costs or buy land in partnership with the Maggie Walker Land Trust at $60 million. But we also have a $5 million investment fund that came out of that case to use for solar. So low to moderate income individuals can apply and they can get solar panels put on the house. So to me, that's an investment that comes out of that type of case. Now, if you want to talk about investment real quick, and then hopefully that answers your question.
Sure, I think Reverend Nelson did a really great job of describing everything. I'll touch on the Williamsburg corridor real quickly in terms of following up on the reinvestment. We've also done a study of the Williamsburg corridor from really 295 all the way down to the city line. We put in place our form-based code. On one section, we intend to extend that with the 2045 comp plan. That's one of our most powerful zoning categories. That enables the private sector to move forward and redevelop some of these properties and gain a greater return, which should give them more incentive to invest in that corridor, along with some other activities that you'll hear about and hopefully the not too distant future we're very excited about. In terms of the process of the data center that was proposed on Darbytown, the majority of the data centers in the county, of the large ones, are located at White Oak Tech Park or will be in the future. The land at the White Oak Tech Park that the county owned is gone at this point for all sakes and purposes. So all of those were approved previously. The Code of Virginia, and the code section, I don't know off the top of my head, but it spells out what you have to do to be vested in a property. And it's based on this term called an affirmative governmental action. So what happened was we had some submittals on the property on Darbytown. The board was in the process of changing the code when they submitted for plan of development. These facilities were allowed by right in the B3 and the M categories, essentially M2s and M3s, which meant they could just submit a plan of development, and that's an administrative process under the Code of Virginia. If it comes forward and it meets all the criteria of the zoning code, then we're compelled to approve it. If we don't and they've checked every box, all they really have to do is appeal me to the circuit court, and the judge will look at me and say, "What do you think you're doing? You need to let this project move on." So under the code, you've got the section that outlines what has to happen to be an affirmative governmental action. This project never got to that stage of affirmative governmental action. So they have requested from me a letter stating whether or not they're vested. So when we do those, and we've done several of those for other projects, the county attorney and I work together, and they will get a decision from me regarding that. If they disagree with my decision, as Reverend Nelson pointed out, they do have the right to appeal it to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And then they make their argument to the BZA. If the BZA upholds, whichever way it goes, if they were to, let's just say it's a negative decision from me, hypothetically at this point, and they appeal that decision to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Board of Zoning Appeals upholds my decision. Then their next stage would be to take it to the circuit court. The flip side, let's say the BZA doesn't agree with that action that I've stated in that letter, and rules against the county in that respect, then the county would have the right to appeal to the circuit court that decision of the BZA. And then it just kind of rolls up to the Court of Appeals and then to the Supreme Court if parties choose to take it that far. So that's kind of how the process works. And did that cover what you need?
That was way more.
Okay.
That was really in depth. Thank you, Joe. And we will, I'm telling you that if for some reason the Board of Zoning Appeals, the county will fight this because we don't want it. Yes.
Thank you. Once again, I know that you're not going to give me the library building on Laburnum Avenue. We're going to go over that one more time. But I was thinking, we're going to have that wonderful new place at 4 Mile Creek, and that's going to be lovely, and we'll put up all of those ideas of history there. What about taking that building there on Laburnum Avenue and going to our churches, our families that have been here, long lived in Varina, and taking some of the records and the history from these different places and use that as a repository to store these files and records from our families that have been here for such a long time, from some of the things that our churches have been storing, and that people could come in there and look through these things and maybe some of the great pictures that they may have, and use that building as something that could really display some of the history. I mean, many of our residents here in Varina, like Miss Ella Robb, who is on Herman Street there, she's 102 years old now. What a story that woman could tell. And the people who lived in her neighborhood as well, who all lived to be over 100 years old. Let's start talking about these histories of our families of Varina.
Thank you. We'll add that to the idea suggestions for that building. I do think there's some uses being considered for it right now, but we'll add that in. Yes, all the way in the back. Miss Melissa Early, right? Thank you for sending me that text message. That's my Henrico Next hookup right there.
You're welcome. So I'm not sure if this is a question for this forum or not, but my question is about the Pocahontas Parkway and those $1 million tolls to get across it. Did my homework, and apparently I don't think those tolls are actually legal right now, and a lot of it is in Henrico County. It was originally actually turned down by the Henrico County organization or government organization that was supposed to finance it. It's transferred hands multiple times, and it's pretty much a failed project. And one of the things that bothers me is that the equipment is outdated, and there's a certain way if you don't pay a toll that they have to notify you. And they keep sending me this stock picture of my truck that I don't even own anymore and telling me that I have to pay a missed toll plus $11.95 for their administrative costs. And I don't even own that vehicle anymore. And now there's a stack of papers that I'm not going to pay of $105 per incident of each time I've missed that toll in times I don't own the vehicle. So
So your question went in a different direction. So can we just get with you afterwards and see if maybe we can get somebody on our end to advocate for you or something? Okay. All right. Any other questions? And we had a Henrico citizen here. I do want to recognize Ms. Hardy for being with us. And we had another question. Who was that? Oh, VPM. Where is that? Oh, hey, thanks for being here with us. We had a lot of coverage for this Varina district meeting. All right. Thank you, good people. Again, we'll be back at it on Thursday night at Elko Community Center at 6 o'clock. Have a good evening.